right, so we're now in escrow. We're going through the process of reviewing disclosures and having the home inspection. You've already sent your earnest money deposit. So now it's time to pay for the appraisal. So the appraiser will come out there, and the appraiser is assigned by the bank that you're using. So if you're a buyer that requires a loan, 99% of people are. If you're a buyer that's cash, then good for you. You don't have to worry about this, but I'll get into that in a sec. So on the appraisal stance, the bank's job is to make sure that they are not letting you over borrow because they have an invested dollar amount into the property as well. So the bank will send an appraiser out, take a look at the property, take a look at the condition, make sure that it's in good working order. A couple of things they check for is double strapped water heaters. They will make sure that you have carbon monoxide detectors where they needed to be, smoke detectors where they needed to be. A lot of the times they will call out peeled or chipping paint. It just depends on how picky the appraiser is. If the fence is fallen over, they'll call that out. And these are all lender required repairs is what they're called, because the bank, again, protecting their investment. Should you say, hey, I'm going to move in and then I stop making payments in 2 months, the bank has to now foreclose on you, get you out, and now those repairs become their problem. So this is why they're protecting their investment by sending somebody out ahead of time to make sure that you're not overpaying for the property, so that if they have to resell it, they're not upside down, right? And that it's in good, workable living condition to, again, protect their investment also. So a couple questions on appraisals. So do I have to get one? The answer is yes if you have a loan. Who pays for it? You as the buyer pay for it. So within 2 to 3 days of us opening escrow, you'll get what's called a loan estimate from your lender. And that loan estimate's going to come through, and that's going to be a request for you to pay for the appraisal. Appraisal cost is anywhere between $500 to $650, just depending on what type of loan you're doing. It is non-refundable because once that appraisal is done, that appraiser was sent out, he did his job, and that's it, right? So those are costs that are considered upfront costs to you as a buyer, is to make sure that the home is worth and in good condition for what you're paying for it. Now, if you're a cash buyer, could you do an appraisal, or do you have to, do you not? So that's such a great question, and I get it all the time. So as a cash buyer, you do not need an appraisal because there's no bank that needs to worry about their investment. That's 100% your investment, that's your money. However, as a cash buyer, you can get an appraisal just to make sure that you're not overpaying yourself, right? Like if you want an additional person that works for these banks, I have plenty in my pocketbook, to where I can send them out and say, hey, we want to get this appraised. We just want to make sure that the condition is good enough in your eyes if you were financing this property, and make sure that we take a look at comps to make sure that we're not overpaying for it. Also, they'll dig into land use. That's another big deal too. A lot of the times these cash buyers will come, purchase a property, and then say, oh, I didn't realize that this was zoned commercial. There's a house on it. Like there's so much more to it. And so having a good agent like myself to make sure that you are going to use this property for what you're telling me you're going to use this for. Like this is all information that I obtain to then find you the perfect property, even if you're cash. But yes, if you're a cash buyer, you can get an appraisal on your end, again, just to protect your investment, because even though it's your own money, this still means it's your own asset. And I'm sure seeing a couple $100,000 flood out of your bank account doesn't feel amazing. So you definitely want to make sure that you're protecting your investment, protecting yourself. And so therefore, get an appraisal. It's just a safe way to do it. Additionally, I want to tell you that on the appraisal stance, a lot of the times people say, well, what happens if it doesn't appraise? That is a big deal. We've had markets where people were offering $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 above and over appraised value. So what happens if it doesn't appraise? It's a renegotiation, whether you're cash, whether you're financed, whatever the case may be. So let's say we offer $900,000 and the appraisal comes in at $880,000. So we're $20,000 shy. Now what? It's my job as a buyer's agent to get that whole price just reduced altogether. I don't want to negotiate. I don't want to pay more money for you as the buyer. So I just tell the seller, hey, look, you had a chance at $900,000. Your property wasn't worth that. It didn't appraise. You need to reduce it to what the property's worth, because ultimately that's the job of the appraiser, and that's the job of the bank, is to protect you as the buyer. So if they say it's worth $880,000, then that's what I want it for. I don't want to start off upside down. I don't want you to have to come in with extra cash. So I just push them to reduce the price. So what happens if they push back on that? So if they say, no, I want to, reduce it only by $10,000. So you buyer come up $10,000, we'll reduce it $10,000. That means is you as the buyer have to come up with $10,000 cash, because remember, the bank's never going to finance more than the property is worth. So you would have to come in with that difference of 10 grand, then they drop it 10 grand. Or they say, nope, I want the buyer to come in with the full 20,000 or I'm moving on. They're allowed to do that. That is one of two reasons a seller can cancel legally, is if it doesn't appraise to the agreed contracted price, they can cancel and go back on the market. But most sellers don't want to. If you have a professional like me on your side, I'm really good at just getting them to understand that, hey, this is what it is. This is the value. Let's knock that thing down and get it going so that we can close. So that's how appraisals work. Additionally, I want to mention that sometimes people say, well, what happens if it comes in above appraised value? Now what? So if it comes in at 900,000 and it appraises at 930, fantastic. You just started with equity. So that is the ultimate goal. And guess what? The seller side, the listing agent, nobody has to know. Just you, me, the lender, with our big smiles that you're walking into equity, right? So they don't have to know that, but you also can't use that cash for anything else. I've had people ask me that too, like, oh, it appraised at 930, so can I just increase the price to 930 and then ask for that cash back? No, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, we can't use that gap for anything, but trust me, you'll feel good about the equity that you're going to get. So that's how appraisals work. I know it's a lot of information, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to answer them.